Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Present Fathers Podcast. Our guest in this episode is Matt Murphy. Matt spent most of his career as a Green Beret and even spent some of that time attached to the CIA. He is also a husband and father, and now he serves as president of Sentinel Foundation for the U.S. What we are going to discuss in this episode is not an easy thing to hear. It is very difficult, but it is absolutely necessary. Viewer discretion is highly advised for this episode. However, I do encourage you to listen carefully, to take these words to heart, and to find the ways in which you can take action today. What we are going to be discussing is human trafficking, specifically for children. Matt and his team at Sentinel Foundation have devoted themselves to stopping this evil all around the world. And unfortunately, the fight is a very difficult one. The demand for this evil is highest in the United States, and it's also the most difficult to do things about it because of our different legal systems and structures. The purpose of this episode is not to scare you. It is not to make you feel downtrodden or discouraged. In fact, it is quite the opposite. It is to give you hope. It is to inspire parents all around the country and all around the world to take action against this. If we don't realize what we are up against, we have no hope of defeating it. So I hope that through this episode, you are inspired to take action, to get involved, and to do what you can in your local communities to stop the evil of child trafficking. Again, viewer discretion is advised, but we do implore you to listen carefully and to get involved. Fathers, this is something that we have to fight. We can no longer remain on the sidelines. We can no longer tiptoe around this conversation. The time for action is now. Our children are suffering all around the world. And if we don't act today, then we are complicit in this evil. Prepare yourselves for a difficult conversation, and please welcome Matt Murphy to the Present Fathers Podcast. Welcome back to the Present Fathers Podcast. This is a very special episode because we are going to talk about something that is much needed and is something that is hard to listen to, but is absolutely essential that men start paying attention to. Fathers, this is our calling to pay much attention to this specific topic and to get involved in the fight. So please welcome to the studio, Mr. Matt Murphy, president of the Sentinel Foundation.
Yep. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah. Matt, so why don't you first introduce yourself, what you're doing with Sentinel at a high level, and then let's go into a little bit of your background and we'll get into the mission.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm the president of Sentinel US. Basically, the foundation started off only doing international work because it was easier, to support international law enforcement, militaries, because they need so much help. So a lot of foundations really focus to help kids from sex trafficking, child exploitation on an international level, because breaking the code, if you will, to working domestically was so difficult. I cracked that code when I started Operation Lightshine, and figured out a way to get into the door and work with law enforcement by partnering with them, by providing them with everything that they were missing, as much as we could that they were missing, when it comes to the training, software, technology, creating a task force, putting law enforcement together to fight these crimes here domestically. But like all things, right, that grow too fast and too many big names get involved, it became too bureaucratic. And what I really wanted to do never got accomplished. And so when I started to look at where the charity was going, I went from building a task force, something that could work, to becoming a CEO, of a bureaucratic NGO that was growing quickly, but it wasn't really affecting the change I wanted it to have, right? So I resigned last summer and came over to the Sentinel Foundation and really got the power back to be able to start to affect the change and do the mission that I wanted, the way I wanted to do it, and bring in the high-level tech, bring in the experts, and really start to change how this crime set is fought. Because there's just a bad habit in law enforcement in this country to just continue to do things the same way. Right. Well, we can't continue to do things the same way when we're not just, the metaverse is not just this thing that's coming. We're living in it. All of us every day. We have been blindsided by technology, and the most important part of our, government that should be looking after us, the law enforcement and the Department of Justice, they are so far behind the power curve
Right.
in technology, or even the legal structure set up to empower them to utilize technology to keep us safe. It should keep you up at night, seeing how bad things have gotten. So what I'm trying to do is find the most innovative minds out there, software, the trailblazers, if you will, bring them together. And we've successfully done that in the for-profit side of the house.
Okay.
We do a lot of contracts all over the world for a lot of different things. I won't get into the weeds on that, because of what we do. But it's taking that, packaging it, streamlining it, and then getting that put behind the Sentinel Foundation in ways that we can here domestically, and then pushing legislators to change the law and allow us to do more. Because at the end of the day, if we can't keep our kids safe, we have no future.
Exactly. And so just to be clear for everyone listening, the Sentinel Foundation is doing everything it can to stop child trafficking.
Yep.
Especially in the United States. Because like
100%.
you mentioned, it's ironically easier, not ironic, it's due to our legal system, it's easier to actually save kids outside of the U.S. And I'm going to yield to Brandon to rattle off stats in a little bit about how pervasive this problem is. But I think a lot of people underestimate how really big their market is, the black market is for children to exploit sexually and physically and all these things. So
out of control.
It's insane. So we're gonna, that's the preview. We're going to get there. First, Matt, I want you to talk a little bit about who you are, kind of what your background is, what makes you qualified to be the president of such an organization. Because I'm sure a lot of people may not know you at that level. And from there, then let's get into really what's actually happening across the world and in the United States, and then how everyone can kind of wake up and get involved. So
sounds great.
You spent about 18 and a half years in the Army, most of it as a Green Beret in 5th Group.
Yeah, 5th Special Forces Group, right up the road from Campbell,
Yep.
man. Yeah, so I joined the military because, like most kids, after college, I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. So I always wanted to be a Green Beret. Now, the first time I went to join, they didn't tell me there was a piss test, right? So I go into, this MAPS military processing place and, pass all the stuff, and then, you got to pee in a cup. And I was like, ooh,
I'll be back.
So, I peed in the cup. I was like, Jesus, take the wheel. And, I failed. So, it was still, this was 2005. Yeah, 2005. So they're like, man, we need people so bad. You just have to, I think it was 6 months that I had to wait and come back. So then I knew that you couldn't smoke pot, a week before. I was post-college kid, just living the good life. I wasn't doing heroin or anything crazy. And man, so I came back, passed MAPS. They told me I couldn't get a secret security clearance because I had failed that drug test. Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, they're like, you can go infantry. And I was like, infantry, let's do it. So I went infantry, did a quick deployment to Iraq, 13 months. And when I was there, these guys came into our base a lot. They had these big beards, crazy clothes, badass guns, just did whatever they wanted. And I was in Solder City, and that was during the surge in Solder City during that deployment. So it was a rough time just even being infantry. But when these dudes would go out, the night sky would just light on fire from the AC-130 gunship strikes. And, I mean, they got after it. And I was like, I got to do that. So the second I got back from that Iraq deployment, tried out for selection, made it, started that journey. And man, it was awesome. I was a communication sergeant at first, and then learned Arabic. Now I speak Arabic fluently in a couple dialects. Still get to use it in the Ubers in Nashville. But yeah, so
that's funny.
Man, I did a lot of stuff in Special Forces, deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, a bunch of other places, fought all the wars. Got to do a whole lot of different, cool, crazy schools and training and get a lot of different certifications. I was a sniper, unconventional warfare expert for those that know what that means, and then just a whole lot of different things with, foreign weapons and different talents, if you will. So I got to see a little bit of everything in Special Forces, which was pretty awesome. But in the middle of that, I got detailed to the CIA for about 5 years.
Okay.
And we were working on a special mission. I can't really talk about that. But because of that, myself and the guys that got to do something similar as me, we got to really see the full spectrum of being what a Green Beret really should be. From creating and starting an unconventional war and seeing it all the way through to the end.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I got to do that in one country specifically. And in the end, it ended up with, destroying ISIS or, degrading ISIS as much as you can.
Right.
And then my last last combat deployment was the one where we smoked all those Russians in Syria, at the Conoco natural gas field. So, man, I got to have a pretty awesome career, man. I got to do a lot of different things. But that was 2018. Excuse me. After that, just did a lot of administrative deployments, advising, assisting, specifically NATO for what they would do if Russia attacked. Nothing, of course.
We're on the brink of that.
And so that was an interesting, next chapter doing that type of stuff. But 2019, it all changed for me, flipped upside down, because my sister got kidnapped on November 5th, 2019. She was picked up 30 minutes later. Cell phone never touched the tower again. And then her body was found in a river Christmas Eve 2019 in North Mississippi. So she was taken from Memphis, Tennessee, and then her body was found in a river in North Mississippi on Christmas Eve 2019. So, man, that was, life-changing event, to say the least. We still don't know what exactly happened to her, but my parents hid a lot of her life from me. And like so many American families are having to deal with right now, she got bad on drugs, and popping pills in high school turned into other things. The next thing you know, it's fentanyl and heroin. Yeah. And man, that I knew her life had gotten bad. A lot was hidden from me. I knew she had been trafficked to pay for her drug habit once she had felonies, when she was kicked out of the house, when she had no money, couldn't hold a job, couldn't even get a job, couldn't drive a car. I mean, and had her custody of her daughter taken away from her. My daughter taken away by my parents because she was such a danger. I mean, it was a mess. But what happened after her death? All the rumors were trafficking, and we just still don't know facts. The Homeland Security opened up the investigation again shortly after I started my first charity, Operation Lightshine, and they just couldn't get anyone to testify. They believed she was trafficked. They found a bunch of other girls that they said they believed were trafficked by the same group, and everyone's so terrified, either hooked on the drugs or terrified of retribution, that no one will testify. Wow. Instead of focusing on that, and a lot of people are always like, well, Matt, why didn't you go do something? And it's like, well, what can you do? The whole time the cops are telling you, if you do, you'll go to jail. Yeah. I've got two daughters. At that time, I had two daughters. And, they're 15 and 12 now. But if I go and murder every dude, that's involved in this, then my daughters grew up without a dad. Right. Yeah. And then they could end up just like my sister, So I had to wrestle with that. And,
I mean, there's so many, like, we live in the age of like outrage and talking a big game and everything. And I mean, we've heard some pretty rough stories on this show, right? And what I know to be true is that we can all think we're gonna, go be Billy Badass in a moment like that, but in reality, like, most won't. I mean, and like you put it, I mean, you have people that rely on you. Could you?
Yeah, exactly.
But should you?
You got what you got to lose, right?
I think you're doing it now, right?
Yeah.
Like we're kind of future casting with Sentinel, but well, first off, I'm very sorry that was kind of that happened, and then that was kind of what I guess opened your eyes to this. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Well, because that was into 2019. And the world shut down in 2020, right, for everybody. They made me a JTAC instructor, pulled me off the team so I could be at Fort Campbell, so I could be with my family at that time. And once COVID hit, I didn't have a purpose in life, right? So I'm just sitting in my apartment in downtown Nashville every day, just started to drink, started to get really depressed. It got dark, man, because I didn't know how to process it. When you're live the life that I lived, the amount of people that you got to kill or sent to die, and just all the horrible things that have happened and you've seen, and buddies you've lost, and just.
Well, and it's also like, don't talk about it really, because there's the next mission, and
and you got to stay in the game, right? Yeah, because if you're out of the game, you could get somebody killed on your team. So you just never think about it. Now, like, at that point, like 17 years of, deploying and fighting wars is being unpackaged at the same time I'm wrestling with the guilt and regret of my sister, right? So, man, it just turned into there was a black hole of just getting hammered and hopeless, and almost killed myself a couple times too, man. There was a couple nights just staring the Glock because you just feel worthless. I think like your whole everything in life, everything I did, like what's it for? Okay, I was in a dark place, and one night I prayed. At that point, I was not a Christian. I'd grown up in church, but I grew to hate the church because of how it is here in the South.
Right.
It's a bunch of judgy, go to church once a week and do whatever they want, nose up in the air. Yeah, they're not Christians. I don't know what they are. It's like a cult. And that made me hate religion, right? Yeah. So one night I was just so hopeless, I just prayed. I don't know, even though... I don't even really know what I was praying to at that time, to be honest. I was just praying, God, if you're there, kind of thing. Life didn't change overnight, but I slowly started praying more. And then I started to look up human trafficking, look up, start to hear things about child exploitation, all these things that are happening to kids, not just overseas, here in the States.
Yeah.
And you start to see like charities that are doing stuff to fight it.
Right.
At that time, everybody knows Tim Ballard and OUR and a couple other organizations that were, set up as NGOs, nonprofit organizations helping save kids. But most of them, and all of them really, were doing it overseas.
Right.
And I looked at that and just said, fuck it. Sorry, I don't know if we can cuss on here. I have a fuck problem.
You, man.
And I Googled how to do an NGO, and I started a charity, all right? And... initially, we were going to be vigilante, right? Just getting some guys together and some people who could hunt and do intel and all that. And it turned into something we were about to just launch, right? And just go start trying to save kids in a Batman kind of way.
Yep.
And I had a buddy here in Nashville. He's a Homeland Security agent by day and a starving guitarist at night. It's a 10-year town. I don't think he's made it to 10 yet. But he... heard about what I was doing in the friend group, and he came to me and he's like, "Hey Matt, you need to talk to somebody because if you do this, you're gonna get in trouble. This isn't right." So long story short, some talks with Homeland Security. They ended up agreeing to partner with me. The Tim Tebow Foundation got involved and funded it.
Okay.
And we started to build a task force here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's since been shut down because of politics and other nonsense. Tennessee is a mess, to say the least. But that charity is thriving in other states and growing. And it does decent to help. It solves one of the problems, not all the problems that we're up against. But it was a good start for me. It was a good way for me to learn what charities are, learn the ins and outs of bureaucracy and personality and celebrity and all of that. And it was a good lesson for me to jump into that, and Lightshine grew quick. It's done some good. Kids have been saved. Yeah. But it's nowhere near how it needs to scale or what we need to be doing. Want it to. Wait, the tech, the intel on the tech side of the house, right? Bringing a bunch of cops together is great, but when they're doing the same stuff they were doing before, it doesn't really help. When we're not addressing the issue, we're just putting the Band-Aid on it. And and I'm not insulting Lightshine or law enforcement there. It's doing better than they were. Right. But the real issue is attacking the tech head on, right? And using technology
and as you mentioned, the law is way behind.
100%.
And the law's not adapting, but the bad guys are. And so
that's the biggest lobbyists in the U.S. government is big tech.
Yeah.
They put the most money into it. So getting, congressmen, senators, even state politicians to make changes, it's tough, man. If Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok... if all of them started internally policing and putting an end to this, child exploitation, for the most part, would probably be gone.
Wow.
Right? But they don't, and they won't. I'll get to that.
Yeah, so can we, Brandon, I'd like you to go over some of these key facts. I want to put into scope so people really grasp how pervasive the evil of child trafficking and exploitation really is, not just across the world. I think... quote me if I'm wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the most demand for it is here in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, because the money and the perversion is mostly here.
So if that pops your bubble or, makes you see kind of the dark side of life, sorry, but welcome to the show. Like, this is the battle of our generation as far as I'm concerned. This needs to be front and center on our minds. And especially if you're a father, You can't claim to be a protector and care about your kids and stuff and not at least pay some attention to this and do something during your lifetime for that. So let's frame this up, Brandon. Go over some of this stuff.
Yeah, so 89% of all sexual advances to children occurs online. And every single day, there are over 500,000 predators actively looking for children to exploit. And so that is one of the darkest parts of it. And not just that, but you're looking at a change of 21.6 million child porn reports from 2020, and 2022 it was 31.9. Yep. It's gone up 10 million.
Wow.
And how many get arrested?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's been a 2,500% increase in arrests in the past 10 years, according to the FBI, just on the child pornography section. That's not even the trafficking, the exploitations, the abductions, all the other things that are. And 79% of the defendants that have had no prior felony convictions. So what that tells me is that they're really good at hiding in plain sight, and they have a clean record. So these are people that have known how to hide their addictions very well, and they're very subversive. And Nick Freitas was talking about this in one of his clips that I saw, and it just struck me. He was talking about the child predator Jack Reynolds, and Jack Reynolds was interviewed, and he said that the first thing that he looks for is whether or not the father is a threat.
Yes.
Okay?
100%.
And he doesn't even look at the child. He looks at the father. So dads, there's two things there. You have to be a threat, and you have to be present enough in your children's lives so that they know you're a threat. And if those two things aren't happening, your child can be in danger at any point in time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's unfortunate that online this stuff happens, but I mean, they literally hang out just on these platforms online. Like 89% of it is purely online. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be vigilant about our children having smartphones. Like 91% from ages 11 to 17 have a smartphone, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's unfettered access to any platform or anything that can connect them directly to a predator.
Yeah. And the phrase there that really stuck with me was, you're not giving your child access to the internet. You're giving the world access to your child.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go, man.
And I know, I don't know, probably won't drop his name, but someone you work with who's very big in the tech space demonstrated that within like 30 seconds of posing as a 12-year-old girl was getting hundreds of messages.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Ryan Montgomery, Zero Day.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Zero Day. Yep.
Yeah. He became pretty popular, if you will, because going on the Sean Ryan show.
Yeah,
I think he was one of Sean Ryan's most viewed episodes ever.
I mean, I watched that thing start to finish without stopping because that was just like
incredible,
eye-opening.
Yeah. Zero Day is Ryan. He's an amazing human being.
Yeah.
So he is our chief technology officer at Sentinel.
I don't want to get into the weeds too much.
No, and he's done some amazing stuff. We do a lot of things together.
Yeah.
On the business and on the the nonprofit side of the house. So. Ryan is an exceptional talent, but that's part of the issue, right?
Yeah.
Is he is considered to be the best hacker in the world, right? And what I mean by that is he can get into anything.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of people look at hackers as like these bad, nefarious people, but here's the problem: here in the United States, if Ryan did any hacking, it would be illegal.
Right. Yeah. He'd be committing cyber crimes. He's going to federal prison.
All these kind of things. But he can break into anything, or people like him, better said, can break into anything anywhere else in the world, and it's fine, right? No one cares. There's not all these laws to prevent it. So here in the States, the predators are safe, and the children are in more danger than they've ever been in their lives inside of these apps and inside of these networks. Because people like Ryan can't legally go into these networks and find the predators, right? So... That is really a mess, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on this, but child exploitation, and I think Sean Ryan misquoted that. I was the one who told him that quote,
and
then
did?
he said it was Ryan. I'm like,
go.
come on, Sean.
I didn't give him credit. I said I heard
it's all
it.
good. No, it really is. It's almost unbelievable what's happened in our society, right? Because I look back to I'm 40, right? So when I look back to when I was a kid. my parents, they would let me run around and go anywhere outside,
Same.
right? You
Yeah, I'm
ride your bike,
35, and we,
do your thing. You just go out, you do your thing, play with your friends, you get in fights, you win, you get beat up, you make mistakes, you break a leg, you do something stupid, you're always outside, you come, kind of that joke when the street lights come on, you better be in for dinner, right?
Yep.
And we got to live a pretty awesome childhood, but our parents protected us from anything radio and TV. There were certain TV shows I couldn't watch. There was a certain amount of time I could spend on the TV. I wasn't allowed to play video games until I was probably 14 or 15. And then they regulated what video games I could play based on the rating. And then music, I couldn't listen to certain types of music.
Yep, same.
I wasn't allowed to listen to rap and alternative rock. Somehow did I when I could? Yeah. But because I was a kid, that's what kids do. But my parents tried to prevent me from that. It was like, you're not ready for that. I wasn't allowed to look at porn. I wasn't allowed to, do all these things because I wasn't allowed to access it. My parents were able to control what I had access to. They were able to regulate it. So basically, they were able to parent me.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now fast forward to today. We take one of these cell phones and we hand it to our 2 and 3-year-old. And, hey, watch Miss Rachel. Shut up at the table. Be quiet. Just, start doing that. We start conditioning our kids to always be entertained.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Now, I've been guilty of this too. I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect.
Literally everyone has.
I'm saying I've done this as well. With the oldest daughters, I've made a lot of mistakes that most dads and parents have made. Started letting them watch these videos. What happens after you start letting them watch videos? They need constant stimulation. They need to constantly entertain.
Yep.
And next thing you know, you're letting them play these games, right? Roblox and all the other things that are out there that seem innocent, right? And that is where all of this starts.
Yeah.
Now, if 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, however many years it was when I was a kid, if I'm upstairs playing in my room and some random man wanted to talk to me, he would have to go knock on my door and ask my mom, hey, is Matt here? Can I go in and go upstairs to his room alone with him and hang out? And would my mom be like, oh, yeah, sure, just right up there. I don't know you, but sure. Yeah. Right? And then another guy shows up to the door and is like, hey, is Matt here? She said, yep, he's right up in his room. And you just send all these fucking creepy old men upstairs, right? Would any parent ever do that?
Absolutely not.
Would any parent today do that?
No.
Then why in the hell are you letting them be on their phones or their iPads alone in a room talking to God knows who?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that parents just won't grasp, because it's such a part. We've been blindsided by this in culture and technology and all the other kids are doing and everybody else's kids are on the app and everybody else is, behaving this way. We're giving our kids, again, access to the world and all information. Now, unregulated information, I don't care what app you put on the phone to keep your child safe, they're going to find ways around it. Because what's the first thing your friends tell you how to do? Is how to bend the rules, how to get around it, right?
Yeah,
then you find out all your bad stuff from your friends.
Yep.
And then a lot of kids these days, because they're growing up on tech, they're smart. They can figure it out themselves. Yeah. So they go down these, things. Now we're seeing kids are getting addicted to pornography at 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, well, Matt, they can't even do anything, at that age.
Doing it up here.
Doesn't matter. You're still, if you're a boy, you're still attracted to women at 5 and 6 years old. Just because you haven't matured to the point yet where you can get a boner. I don't know what the proper medical term for that is. An erection. There you go. Sorry, I had to go to med school, obviously.
Neither did I.
Yeah. So, you haven't even got an erection yet, but you're still attracted to women. Mm-hmm. If you still see boobs in a butt, you're going to lose your mind, even at 5 and 6 years old. So we're seeing little boys get so addicted to pornography because they have access to it and they can watch it. I mean, what happens when you Google booby or boobs or vagina? You don't just see a anatomically correct picture from school,
right?
On it. You're on Pornhub.
Yeah.
You're on OnlyFans. You're on something where it's hardcore pornography.
Yeah.
So we're seeing these kids get addicted and going down these porn rabbit holes. By the time they can get an erection, naturally, they can't. Because they're so desensitized.
Jeez.
And so a woman no longer does it to them because by then it's gangbangs and God knows what else. And with most of the stuff that's on porn now they're probably attracted to boys and girls, right? Because they're throwing a whole lot of that, bisexual pornography out there now too. So we're seeing kids can't even get an erection anymore because of that pornography. Now, but think about it like this. How many red flags would there be if some adult started to try to talk to me, who was parented and protected as a child, about sex, or wanting to see my private parts, or trying to touch me, or doing something weird, or getting me alone, right? How many red flags would I have naturally as a kid back in those days?
A lot.
A ton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hell no.
I mean, I remember
Right?
my parents having that conversation. Hey, if anyone ever asks you
Mm-hmm.
for any of this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
run away screaming. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
do not.
Well,
Yeah.
here's where we're going. If I can Google porn and watch it at 5, 6 years old, if they're
Right.
teaching me about anal sex and blowjobs in kindergarten and first grade, like they do in most public schools now, if it's being, if losing your virginity is no longer a bad thing, it's now an encouraged thing, and the earlier you can do it by Planned Parenthood, which is funded by our own government, they have a campaign right now telling girls that virginity is a social construct, and you know it's basically holding them down, keeping their virginity.
Jeez.
So all these things, right? All this combination of online, what the kids have access to, the entertainment, the media, the education system telling kids sex is okay, teaching them about all these sexual acts, and then parents just letting it happen,
Yeah.
right? Not parenting anymore, not fighting for their kids, not protecting them. When a grown man is messaging your 5, 6, 7-year-old daughter online asking to see her vagina, she's not going to probably have any red flags. And there's a proof to that. We found a 6-year-old girl who had an iPhone for 2 days. She'd sent about 60 images, nude images of herself, to a guy in Texas. The guy in Texas, when caught, had done this to over 800 other children. This is one guy. Because they don't know any better now. It's normal to them.
Oh my goodness.
They've seen sex at this point. They've been taught about it at school. So why is it weird that this old man
Right.
could have a crush on me, or tell me I'm pretty, or make me feel good? Why wouldn't I do this stuff? Adults are doing it. I'm being encouraged to do it. And we have created the perfect storm for child exploitation because of the desensitization and the education system that our kids are experiencing, the media that we're letting our kids have access to, the untethered access they have to the internet. We're creating the perfect storm for children to be exploited and groomed, and then, God forbid, even after that, trafficked.
Man,
It's a perfect storm.
I think you had something.
Yeah, there was things that I was reading on where it was saying that a lot of these guys are really smart with it too. Like they'll bring them off of one platform to another one that's more encrypted,
Yes.
so that they can't get caught. And so they're really good at covering their tracks. And you know, the people that are so hell bent on talking sex with our children are also the people that are telling us that the traits that make us masculine and a threat are toxic masculinity, and so there's a social aspect there as well.
Well, yeah. Well, this is where it gets into an issue, right? And there's a lot of agendas in this country right now that are being funded. You know, this isn't conspiracy. You can look it up. You know, you have the BlackRock, the Vanguard, the State Street, you know, the big private equity funds that are backed by the big banks that incestuously own each other and every corporation, which means they can never fail.
DEI and all that kind of
And
stuff.
and the ESG and the DI that they push.
If you don't do it, you don't get the money. And
100%. Well, here's where it gets worse. They're pushing all this through our school systems and, you know, through our government programs as well.
yeah,
So what we're doing is we're weaponizing sexualization. You know, we're politicizing sexualization. So you can't say this is bad, or you're anti this, or
Right.
you're a hater or a homophobe or a
Bigot,
racist or a transphobe. You know, they can say any bad name they want to about you when you're speaking out and just keeping kids safe.
Yeah.
Because not letting your kids be sexualized, be free, lose their virginity, experience all these things is, you know, it's empowerment.
yeah,
Right? It's freedom.
right.
You know, so they're putting this good context on it. While by me saying, no, it's not, I'm their parent, those are my daughters, and I will protect them and allow them to mature in a healthy, natural way, you know, is, you know, heterosexual, homophobic, and is a white Christian nationalist point of view.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
know?
and the weaponization of sexual orientation and all the other things that are involved with that has gotten way out of hand. In fact, there was a TEDx talk that I just saw somebody posting about recently that was talking about how pedophilia is supposed to be normalized.
That's like an
And that's-
8-year-old TEDx.
That's
that came out a
absurd.
long time ago.
Yeah, I posted
and it's like
that
it's
not too long ago, too.
recirculating now. But yet that person was saying that back a while ago.
Well, they've been doing it, and,
and
people attack me for this. But the UN has suggested decriminalizing pedophilia, which basically means, that they're not saying change the laws yet, but what they're saying is don't prosecute them.
Yeah.
Right, globally. You have a lot of states that have already decriminalized pedophilia that consider sex with a minor a misdemeanor, right? Or they'll just. So here's where we're screwed in America right now. Is most law enforcement I've met wants to do their job, wants to arrest these people, wants to protect our children. Where we're in a lot of troubles with the justice system. The justice system.
I'm going to stop you there. It's a legal system.
The legal
not
system.
A justice system.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Lady Justice is dead. There's 2 tiers, and that never should be American. That's just a fact. If anybody wants to question me on that, look at the Epstein client list. Look at all the other stuff that's happened, right?
Yeah.
I can get arrested for anything. They can't, right? So, anyways, you have the legal system that has weaponized politically, especially, right? And basically, if you get elected on the left, whether you're a DA, state attorney, AG, whatever, you're going to not prosecute these cases. So cops can arrest them all day.
Nothing happens.
But nothing's going to happen, right? So if you know that as a child predator, you're just going to go to the states or the areas where they're just being, like arrested and let out. But you're not just seeing that with child predator. You're seeing that with murder now, rapes, all kinds of things all over this country.
Well, in 2020, we got activated to defend the state capitol here in Nashville. On 4th of July night, in partnership with THP, we arrested, I think, 75 people who were like trying to break the line, soldiers with riot shields. They were all out the next day.
Oh, yeah.
100% of them.
Well,
even though they were like vandalizing federal property, assaulting armed, military, not just police. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we here?
It's encouraged, man.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up, obviously, trying to change things, but I think we're only going to see change, and the only people that want to talk to me are conservative governors, conservative attorney generals, have, strong Christian values and conservative, majority conservative support bases. They'll talk to me all day.
Yeah.
You will not see a blue state talk to me.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, Well, and I don't want to make this political. Protecting our children shouldn't be political.
No.
What? It is. The facts don't lie. And that's what drives me insane it's just we live in a society where it's the sexualization of our children, the pushing of, decriminalization of pedophilia, and the movements that are behind that. I think we all know what they are trying to make it okay, for kids to have sex, because it's not about the offender now. It's about the child's freedom. It's about the child's right to choose.
It's like a
child's consent, right? The child's ability to consent. It's mind blowing.
Have you seen the video where the guy's got like thousands of dollars or like an ice cream, and his son picks the ice cream over the thousands of dollars? It's like, this is why you don't let kids pick. They don't understand,
100%.
But this also, if we can take a quick tangent, I'd love you to weigh in on this, because what I'm seeing now, the new line is there is no culture war. Right?
Yeah.
This is the new line coming from a certain side, saying that, people like us trying to just say, hey, some basic standards here in protecting common sense is not toxic or crazy. It's like needed, right? So the new war is that, or the new phrase is, there's no culture war, especially when it relates to digital things, entertainment, right? And so we already talked about how tech is such a huge door in, but it's not just creepy guys in their rooms, right? It's happening in other mediums as well.
100%.
And if you dare to say that, you're written off with all the, like Brandon said, right? They use all the terms against you.
Yeah.
There's no cultural war. What are you talking about? And so outside of just the internet, I've personally seen like episodes of certain shows that are supposedly for kids talking about subjects that, quite regardless of your politics, my 6-year-old daughter has no business hearing any of this, right?
No.
So what is your advice for parents, not just dads, to really start waking up and paying a lot more attention to that kind of thing?
Yeah.
In a very practical way that actually, okay, so culture war or not, fine, whatever. Big corporations can do what they're going to do. You still get to control what happens in your home, right?
100%.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. What is Matt's advice for the practical ways to make that happen?
I mean, 100%. I mean, the first thing is where they're getting educated. Right now, I know not everyone has this ability, but if you have the ability to get them out of public schools, do it. It's just a fact. And if you live in a more red or conservative state, those schools are generally better and are under less threat because the school boards and the local political parties have done a good job protecting it. But still, the federal funding, to get the federal funding, there's certain things that push those agendas into the schools, right? Now, I know a lot of people can afford, private schools. I can afford private schools. My daughters go to public schools, but I made sure the schools they're at, they're not getting this nonsense, right? So, then, if you can't afford private homeschooling is a good option, right? There's a lot of people that have started like banding together, like-minded parents that have started to look at
co-ops, basically.
Do co-ops. Everybody chips in, pays the teacher's salary, and the kids get taught, in a good way, and they remove this kind of stuff. Because here's the thing, because of technology and the school system both being arguably against our children right now, letting them spend 2/3 of their day in those two areas, and then the other third of the day is asleep or an hour or two with you, you're not going to win that battle as a parent. Whatever the most time and influence is there, that's going to win all day, every day. I don't care how cool or how good of a dad you are. Time and influence is going to win out every day. So really being able to dictate where your children spend their time outside of the time with you is going to be the only way that you can control or have the most control over who your child becomes or who influences your child, right? And that's one thing that a lot of parents don't understand. The next thing I would say is just get off the phone. And I fight with this too, right? Our world's in chaos right now, right? Financially, there's little mini wars going on all over. At any moment, any one of them could escalate into World War III. We have all these culture wars going on, the good versus evil. I really believe we're in the battle of good versus evil right now, right?
Yeah, it is biblical.
A whole
principalities and
I mean, things are getting pretty biblical, to say the least, right? And what has happened, though, during all of this that has made this so difficult is, for the first time in history, there is a device in all of our pockets that controls every single thing that we do. And that's just not most people, that is all people. Even homeless people have iPhones, right? There's a reason for that. This dictates your life, right? So everything I do is on this phone. My calendar, my schedule, right?
We book
my emails,
we
my
this
texts.
right now through our phones.
My social media, my charity stuff, the content that we create, all of that's on this phone. What else is on this phone? Every distraction that we need, right? That they need. Because they want you to feel hopeless. They want you to live in fear. They want you to just shut down. This is psychological warfare on a scale that's never been fought before.
Can you talk to that a little bit too? Because this is the other element that people will look at me like I'm absolutely nuts. And I'm not an expert on unconventional warfare. I was never special operations. I just understand at a very rudimentary level, if I was the bad, if I was trying to reach this conclusion, this is exactly the things I would do, right? I'm not going to go fight toe-to-toe about it. I'm going to subvert it. So, in general, with your experience both as a Green Beret and CIA, both experts of unconventional warfare, talk about what you believe is happening, kind of wave tops of why this is all unconventional ways of just slowly breaking things down to essentially keep us trapped.
Yeah, of course. So if you look at traditional warfare, and this is just human nature 101, right? People are stupid, and we're sheep, and we do the same things over and over again. If you look at history, it's that big hamster wheel, right? Everybody's seen all the memes and the videos on it. We're in a hamster wheel, and we do the same stupid shit over and over and over again. That's because everything around us has evolved. We have not. We have not changed. We are still the same people. We're humans, right? We're still susceptible to, we still group think. We're still going to do the same stupid things. Now, what people have learned is they've gotten better and better and better and better at manipulating that. Whether that's through frequencies, through video, through drugs, through food, and through content, media, manipulation, whatever else.
Yeah.
And there's certain government agencies that are really good at that, right?
Yeah.
You can even Google some of the programs that certain government agencies have done. MK Ultra is a fascinating one. If you really believe that the things that are happening to us are a conspiracy theory, just Google MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Just Google it.
We're going to need to do a separate episode just on that one because I could talk about that all day.
100%.
Check that out.
So when you look at countries and regimes, right, it's only usually the top 1% to 3% that actually care enough to pick up a gun or a sword or a bow and arrow, or a stone
the populace, top
of the
1% to 3%.
populace that will fight, right?
Okay.
Only the top 1% to 3%, and that goes through every war, pretty much that you can read about from the beginning of time, right? So traditional warfare used to be the top 1% to 3%, the people that would be willing to fight. They go to war. Whoever wins on the battlefield gets all the spoils. Then you go in, you rape and pillage and plunder. Right? That's how warfare, human nature, has been fought pretty much since the beginning of time.
Thousands, yeah.
Right? All the way up to, I would say, Vietnam, World War II. World War II, then Vietnam was a little different. You just go to war. Right? Yeah. And to the victor, the spoils. Only we stopped the raping. Well, we did, not everyone else. Right? Japan, Russia, all them.
Yeah.
So you see warfare start to change, and in warfare we started to give people their countries back. And we're like, oh, we won this, but here you go.
Yeah.
Just don't do that again, right? You know? And then Vietnam came, and it was just kind of like an occupation type war, and then the Gulf War, and then you look at, the global war on terror and all the things that have happened, right?
Yeah.
And warfare went from winning the populace, and taking things over and making it yours and planting the flag and, getting, because you already killed all the dissenters. It went to this hybrid type of warfare / psychological operation that we were testing out, especially in the global war on terror, where we were trying to run psychological operations whilst killing people.
Hearts and minds. You got to win their hearts and minds.
Hearts and minds. But every once in a while you got to, shoot them in the mind. And that didn't really work because...
Not at all.
We learned a lot, though. We ran a lot of tests, and a lot of the things that we figured out are worked are being used against us right now, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But that was really, to me, the global war on terror was the testing bed for everything that's happening, not just to us, but to Europe and most of the planet right now.
Yeah.
Right? We're under some form of this control. So now, instead of... killing the top 1% to 3% and then going into the country and taking your spoils and controlling the populace. Because what's the point of fighting the war if you don't get to control the populace and get the spoils and the resources and all that, right?
Your power, exerting your power,
Well, do you need to kill the top 1% to 3% anymore?
Nope.
Why is that?
You just circumvent them. Yep.
Social.
Yeah.
They already control the brains, the behaviors, the actions, the desires, the thoughts, and arguably the personality, the religion, and the sexuality of every human being here in the United States. Already control it with this. Why in the hell do you need to kill the top 1% to 3%? Why waste the bombs and bullets when they have already successfully subverted, manipulated, and control everyone here?
Yeah.
Right? And people are like, well, Matt, how could we be controlled? Pull up a chair. And it's like... Children are being raped.
Just a very simple example is if you and I Google the exact same thing, we will get different results.
100%.
Guaranteed.
Based on your echo chamber.
Mine's based off of off of what the algorithm thinks me or knows me. They know you to like 99.9% accuracy, FYI. If you didn't know that. Yours will be very different. His will be very different. Tom's over there will be very different.
Yeah.
That's something as inane as just searching a thing, right? So
100%.
then imagine how much that multiplies off of every little...
You're being
idiosyncrasy of life and
all day long, man. So we now idly sit by while children get raped, people get trafficked, people get murdered, while conspiracy is against our kids. Children are getting dumber. People are taking advantage of the system. People are not being held to the same level of justice. Right? People are literally getting away with murder and human trafficking. You have a country that is literally falling apart. You have inflation at an out of control rate. I think we're printing about $1 trillion a month right now.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable, right? We printed more money since COVID than we have in the entire history of the country. We are literally losing our foothold in everything. Our resources are being destroyed. Our food's being destroyed. Our livestock is being destroyed. There's fires happening at meat factories and farms all over the country. They're starting to feed us bug protein. Tyson just signed a big deal with a bug protein producer. That's probably in a lot of the chicken now. I might get killed for that one. But no, I'm kidding. But then we're literally losing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're literally losing everything. And I mean, and we just talk about it on podcasts.
Yeah.
No one's doing anything about it. If you go all the way back to like 1776, it was taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Little tea party.
They're like, that's too far.
I mean, we say it as a joke. It's
What's
like,
left?
our founding fathers would have been, shooting people by now.
They
It's
would have.
like, here we are.
What do we have left to fight for?
Yeah.
What haven't they done to us already? I really want people to think about that. Now, why is that? Why are they able to get away with all these things? Why am I not doing anything about it, right? Why are we collectively not doing anything about it, or anyone else for that matter? Why has no one gone crazy and just said, screw it, and started attacking D.C.? Why? It's because all of us are being controlled and manipulated by this. And we are not able to collectively band together or do the right thing anymore because we are inundated, and you don't even understand the level that you were inundated to just through this and the information that you see every day.
Yeah.
And our food is lowering our testosterone.
Oh, yeah.
Our water is lowering our testosterone. Our vaccinations are lowering our testosterone. We're on track. I think it's by the year 2040. And right now that they're projecting that no biological male will have the testosterone level, which means the level of sperm necessary to be able to reproduce.
Wow.
We're on track. That's
It's like 16 years from now.
That's 16 years from now. We're already 70% lower testosterone than men 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Our children have some of the lowest testosterone of any men ever born. And it's all by design. Now, where does this go? Why are we not fighting back? It's because we live in a society of low testosterone, low motivation, beta males. By design.
High
Our
in
children are being
agreeableness,
born that way. So men who don't have a whole lot of testosterone, boys that aren't allowed to go outside and go get in fights and ride their bikes and play sports and be free and chase the girls, when you're not getting that human need, right? And you're not filling that void and building your testosterone, eating healthy food and drinking clean water, what are you going to become? You're going to become a little beta male that's like turned on and into and whatever else comes through this phone.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm gay. That's how this happens. It's not a coincidence. The content's there. All of those things are there to make them question their sexuality. Well, if you don't have enough testosterone and you're physically a boy, you're going to question your sexuality.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the testosterone level too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I'm telling you, man, they're literally coming at us from every angle.
Okay.
Every possible angle that you can imagine them to come at us, they've already done it. And that is why nothing happens. That is why we all just sit around and complain. But here is the biggest piece, and I want people to think about this, right? Okay. What do you do to complain? What do you do to change? What do you do to affect society as a whole? You get on social media.
We're doing it right now. We're recording this episode.
You share a post.
Yeah.
You like a post. You comment. You argue
It's just
in the comment section.
screaming into the void.
You scream into the metaverse. Every single person does that. Now, the dopamine hits that you get from being on social media are just as strong as heroin.
Yep.
Right? Just as strong as heroin, right? So you literally feel like you did your part. That's the most messed up part about it. After you get into sharing a story or get into a comment war or liking a post or seeing enough stuff that agrees with you, you feel like you've done something when you haven't done in the real world.
Yeah.
So we want to know why the world's burning because we live in this world.
Yeah.
What we do, our mind, our action, our attention, our effort, everything is in this world now. We just do what we have to do here.
Yeah. So what would you recommend dads do with all these, social ideologies, all the things attacking us? What is your recommendation on how they can better protect their kids? Like some simple steps, some first steps, and then maybe some more solid things.
People need community, right? God always says, we're 3 or more gathered, so am I, right? Men need community that's not the bullshit that's being preached in our churches. And I'm sorry, our churches are lost, man. It does not say anywhere in the Bible to build a church and tie 10% to that church that you built to keep the lights on and make the thing bigger and have a better band and bring more people in. It says give to the works of the Lord. Tithe to the works of the church. You're tithing to the church so it could do the mission that God...
Right.
The church means God's people.
What was the church?
Yeah.
Right, until...
Right. Until we created these freaking, multi-million-dollar institutions of bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. If the church did its part and brought people together to be Christians, right? Christians in that context, to worship the Lord and do the Lord's works, which is take care of orphans and children.
And widows in distress.
Widows,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If we were taking care of those people, what God actually called us to do, this world would not be in the situation that it's in. I promise you. And any pastor can come sit down and talk with me about that. Anyone who wants to learn more about that can open up their Bible and read it.
Yeah.
So that, really, the billions of dollars that get given to our churches in tithes to build this big building that people can come pray in once a week for 1 hour, and instead of putting any of that money back into the community, or where all of it should be going, to the women and the children, we wouldn't have kids being trafficked. We wouldn't have women left so alone that people could take advantage of them and then take advantage of their children. If Christian men were not just looking out for their own families, if they're even doing that, that would be the first step. That's how you turn this country around. Civil War. They went around to the churches, which were then a part of the community, right? Nobody has a community church anymore. Now you have multiple warring factions and denominations and all this stuff in the community.
I'm Reformed or I'm Baptist or,
Where in the Bible does it say that shit? Nowhere.
Yeah.
So the first thing the devil had to pervert is a church. And people want to fight me over this.
I just finished reading Outwitting the Devil. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't read it.
That's literally...
I used to work for him. So,
yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. I can feel that one.
Yeah.
But in the book, so whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. But the point, so the author supposedly has this encounter with Satan himself and is able to compel the devil to answer all of his questions honestly. And so he's asking the devil how he dominates mankind. And that's in the book. The 2 things that the devil uses first to control all people, that the institutions that teach the things he wants to keep everyone trapped, is the church and the schools. And this was written in 1938, I think.
100%.
Maybe before.
Spot on.
They didn't publish it till 2011. So maybe he met the devil, maybe he didn't. That's irrelevant. But for him to write that in the 30s, and then you look at the world we have today, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a little eerie. When I listened to that chapter, I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
hard to deny that one.
The church is why we're here. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people want to blame it on the Democrats or blame it on the Republicans or blame it on the government or blame it on the deep state or blame it on blah, 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 blah. No. The destruction of what God intended the church to be.
Yep.
And the creation of all these multiple denominations, multiple different viewpoints on religion, multiple different ways that it's preached and taught. Yeah. We have created a culture and a society of weak, pussified Christians, right? If you read the Bible, God doesn't play games.
No.
Right?
Well, and his 12 disciples were, for the most of them, were like hardworking guys. They weren't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you really look at the Bible, the 12 disciples were fuck-ups. They were evil men that did horrible things.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. And it's like, why were the disciples fuck-ups? Because you have to fuck up a lot.
To learn.
To learn, right? And you have to make a lot of mistakes. And you have to know evil. You have to have been tempted by it. You have to have fallen to it, right? That's why God picks his disciples and he picks his men that understand the devil's tricks, that have fallen to the tricks. Because if I pick some holy goody two-shoes, it's never,
he's never been tested.
Never been tested, never failed to a test and knows how to not do it again, he's going to fail. Because once the devil starts to come at you, he can get you because there isn't, everything is new to you at that point, right? So God's disciples who then died in the most horrible ways imaginable for God, because they would never denounce that God rose again. Now look at who Christians are.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not trying to beat Christian men up. I'm just trying to get
It's a call to action.
Yeah, it's a call to action.
I'm with you, and Brandon, I want you to respond too. Because to be clear, like my faith is immensely important to me, and I know for a lot of people that probably turns you off. That's fine. I've had many of the same thoughts, right? And my faith now is more real, more on fire, more rubber meets the road for me than it's ever been in my life.
Yeah.
My connection to God is stronger than it's ever been. Like I really feel I'm in tune with him and following him. And those things you're talking about, they look even worse to me now than they used to. Not always, right? There are good churches. There are good people. Yeah. But and we're getting way into the weeds here, but I mean, Christian men, it's time to stand up. Like we used to fight for things that mattered, and now we're agreeable and we don't want to rock the boat and stuff, and like that's not love or compassion.
Yeah.
Like not doing the hard thing that needs to be done in the moment, and it's painful in the moment, but in the long term it's better for everyone. Like that's love and compassion. That's doing the hard right over the easy wrong.
So I agree and I disagree too, because I understand with like mega churches and like they're getting millions and millions of dollars, but I see like example, my church, they are crafting and creating moral, good people, and iron sharpens iron, right? God calls us to be in commission with other Christians. And so our church is just that central location for that. And then we pour that out into our community with like giveaways like food, and we do sheltering things. We do all these other things with the money, and then we do the international missions and all the other things that we do. So I have personally come from a church where we do amazing, great things, but at the same time, it is definitely different than the time of the disciples in Christ. And it's, I can see where you're coming from on that, especially when you were, in an environment where there's a lot of hypocrisy. And so, I would say that there are good churches. You just have to find the right one, because there are some that aren't doing that.
There are.
Or band together. What you're urging really, though, is to band together based off of what the word really says.
What the word really says.
Not the business of
business of the church. Because the business of the church is, where does most of the money that goes to church go?
Yes.
When are churches ever going to be transparent with that, right? Where does most of the money that's donated go?
Salaries and stuff.
Salaries, right? Positions, all these positions created because you have a building.
It's definitely something to think about.
Right? How much does a building cost? How much does it keep the lights on, right? Well, what about how many women and children need constant everyday care?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? 25% of American kids miss a meal every day or something. It's a very high number.
If I had a church, it would be people donating to a large building that housed, fatherless families, helped women get back on their feet, and took care of kids that didn't have a roof over their head. Right? That would be my church, because that's what God called us to do with that money, right?
Yeah.
So what I mean, man, is we have to repurpose. If we don't make radical change, right? And this is where everybody gets mad at me. You tell the truth hurts.
Sure.
People are like, Matt, what can we do? Well, we have to quit doing the same fucking thing we've been doing, because it ain't working. Yeah. Right? We have to quit saying, well, this church is okay, and this thing is okay, or this community is okay. We got to stop that. Because if we keep doing that, and we just keep perpetuating the problem.
Yeah.
This is a time for radical change, because it is not crazy to say that we will lose this country probably in our lifetime. We will. If we continue on this path, we will. We will. And the illegal immigrants that were just brought in, everybody's like, oh, they're going to make crimes, they're going to do all these terrible things, terrorist attacks and all that. Yeah, all that's a very, very real possibility. But you know what they really did? They shipped them. They all came into this country, paid for by Department of Homeland Security and some global agendas. They all came into this country with an address on them.
Yeah, to go somewhere and...
Why? To flip elections, flip the populace, flip the electoral college. That's why. Even Elon Musk has come out and said, this is why, guys. What they've literally done is they have literally changed.
And I just want to interrupt you real quick because these are very they're topics that get people really spun up, right? So again, go back to what we talked about, unconventional warfare, right? So just remove your emotion or your beliefs from this for just a second and just think like this is a chess game, right? If you're trying to win and you can't do it by just shooting people, what are you going to do? Now, are we right about everything? Probably not.
Yeah.
I sure hope I'm wrong about a lot of it.
Yeah.
Because that means the world will be better, but I don't think it is. But just play that out a little bit. Just think about what Matt talked about initially about unconventional warfare and how it destabilizes and you can circumvent those who would fight and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And just look through that lens for a little bit. Try and go through that thought exercise a little. And then beyond just elections and things like that, now look at trafficking.
Yeah.
Now look at what that's really doing and what...
Literally.
I mean... Because if you think about it, it's the ultimate way to subvert the next generation.
Literally. It takes
you
the
literally
next
steal
generation
them.
away. You steal the next generation. Now, what's happening, and this is proven, multiple groups have proven this. Dr. Phil, of all people, even went on The View of all shows and admitted this because he investigated it. You know, majority of these people that are coming to this country right now, majority of the people are military-age men.
Yeah,
18
they're
to 30.
not families.
They're not from Mexico.
No.
They're from Africa, China, the Middle East, South America, Central America, and Mexico too. But the majority are not from Mexico or Central America, where everybody says they're coming from. Multiple countries in Africa and South America have emptied their prisons of their violent offenders into the U.S., right? So some groups have said it's about 70% of the people that have come over are military-age males. 70%.
Wow.
Right? Now,
And the number is roughly what we think?
oh man, I think we're over 20 million now.
So
Yeah.
that's what, 17? Or I'm bad at math. I'm
So
not a
it's-
math guy. 15,
like-
something
It's a good
million
percentage,
that are
that's for
fighting
sure.
age male?
Close to probably 15 million.
14.
Yeah, 14. Yeah, there you go.
I don't do public math for a reason. This is why.
Yeah, man, math's not my strong suit. So you look at this. These are just facts, man. And so you got all these military-age men, right? What are they doing? They're not here to get jobs and start families.
Yeah.
What are they here for? Let's see. Well, then the ones that brought children over were not family units. These children are being dropped off in San Diego and another shelter in Arizona. Their identifications were being destroyed, or any papers that they had. They were being given new names, and they were shipped all over this country.
Oh, jeez.
To who? Now, all the federal agents, because I know them, a lot of them, that they call a name or they call a number. Someone answers and say, "Are you getting this kid?" And they're like, "All right, great," and they send the kid on their way. And then NGOs that are, again, funded by DHS move the child to God knows who. So who
So there's
knows?
like no vetting whatsoever
No
of
vetting.
who this kid's going
Zero
to.
vetting. Now, meanwhile, let's think about this, right? Here and now these people are given a stipend, they're given health care, and they're given shelter
By our government.
by our government with our tax dollars. Meanwhile, what happens to you if you lose your job?
If I lose my job.
Yeah, maybe you'll get some unemployment.
Oh, right.
but-
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
What about healthcare? What if you're not a veteran, right? What if you don't have all that? So they're getting taken care of by our government, moved here. Their transportation and a monthly stipend are paid for them to go anywhere they want to go in this country where they're told to go. And then something's ready to receive them and house them, whether it be hotels or whatever they've got ready to take all these people in all over this country, right? They're literally changing the demographic. Now, what's happening to these kids? Now, back to what we talked about when we started. Foster care system is hemorrhaging. There are not enough foster families to take care of our own kids. Kids that are born here in the United States, almost 70% of kids in the foster care system will be sexually abused or trafficked.
Jeez.
CPS, completely broken. Hemorrhaging. It's so bad because there's not enough caseworkers. There's not enough government employees. There's not enough resources to take care of all these kids. These kids end up just running away or disappearing, right? If we can't even take care of the kids that were being born naturally here in the United States, where in the hell are millions of immigrant children going? It's nowhere safe.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of families wanting to take care of them or help them because there's not enough families in the CPS and the foster care system or the adoption system. As Americans, you have to pay, $60 $80,000, $100,000 to adopt a kid.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. Most parents that want to adopt kids can't even afford it. So who's getting these free kids?
Yeah.
Is anything good happening to them? And most of the law enforcement agents that you talk to that are working on the border will tell you they're getting trafficked. They're getting sent to God knows.
So essentially, we're being complicit in it.
We're paying for it.
So our tax dollars
are paying for it. Are funding
child trafficking.
Now, when you used to be partnered with Homeland Security investigations, that's not a popular thing to say because they're they work under Department of Homeland Security. But Homeland Security Investigations is some of the best federal law enforcement officers out there at fighting human trafficking and child exploitation. You can't make this shit up. But their parent, director is the one who's trafficking all these people into the country and paying for it.
So they can't do anything about it.
They can't do anything about it. You can't make the things happening in this country make sense if you try.
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, Matt,
well,
what can we do?
It makes sense if you're trying to... it makes a lot of sense if you're trying to destabilize things.
We are in the middle of unconventional warfare. Yeah. So unconventional warfare, you've already got the mind control, the propaganda, the manipulation,
the access.
It's already here, right? It all happens to us on here, me included, every day, right? What do you get inundated with every day? Information, right? You get destroyed with information all day long, every day. You cannot even make your mind up about if you spend 15 minutes on Instagram or name your social media app, I try to tell me everything that you saw in those 15 minutes.
Impossible.
It's impossible, right? You saw happiness stuff, sad stuff, funny stuff, depressing stuff, warfare, trafficking, puppy videos, kids, your mind just went in a complete, hamster wheel by the time you spend 15 minutes on your phone. So everything that you'd been thinking about, everything that you wanted to do, what happens when you spend 15 minutes on your phone?
Just forgot. Got distracted.
Then what happens again? Next notification. Next notification all day long. This is what's happening to us as adults. They're like, well, Matt, there's no way it can do all that. Okay, COVID. You had half the country that wanted half the country to die because they wouldn't get vaccinated. You had half the country thinking that if they were wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart and behind plastic bubbles, that was the only way they were going to survive a cold. And then you had the other half of the country wanting life to go back to normal and fighting all this stuff and fighting regulations and sticking it to the man. And all that happened because of this.
Yeah.
That's the only reason any of that happened. And the only reason anyone got so scared or anyone got so radical or anyone got so crazy or got any information they had was because of this phone right here. Now, you want to tell me that they could do that with a cold? It wasn't the cold. It was the trial run of this.
Yeah, and for those who may not have heard of him, his name's Dr. Matthias Desmet, I think. I don't want to. I'll put his correct name. That one. Yeah. You don't know him, or
no? I can't say that name.
He's not American, but he calls it mass formation. Right? There's a thing that happens with humans where, for good or bad, we crave to be formed into masses, and it's like outliers who won't comply. But most of us, we crave a certain level of comfort of being with the group. It's kind of a survival instinct. So. But what you're saying from a perspective of unconventional warfare, you can manipulate behaviors of masses
100%
through tweaks because fear is a powerful motivator. And 100%. So, this isn't the conspiracy theory show or anything, but you just have to look at it through that lens. Don't draw the party lines, don't draw the narratives, and just zoom out for a second and just again think about. If you were trying to have this outcome so that you can have more power, what would you do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Russia started doing it to us in the 50s. They kind of stopped.
There's that defector guy. He talks about it in detail.
Alexei Bezmenov?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Yeah, he was like a KGB way up, high up, and he breaks down like step by step how they would destroy us from within.
Yes. All this is very real stuff. Yeah. The problem is most people don't want to see it, and even if they know what we're saying is true, right? it's too tough to let into their everyday life, to acknowledge this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong, because then it starts to drive them mad because they can't do anything about it, right? And this is why I tell everyone about this, right? You can't fight all of it.
You have to pick one.
But you got to pick one thing, right? And that, pick a thing that you can get support. But the first thing is start being a better father, being a better mother, being a better member of society, on whatever level that is, right? Start to develop relationships with your neighbors, create community. Make sure you're creating community with like-minded people. If they're not like-minded, wake them up to the truth, right? And that's why church used to be so effective, in the sense that church was a community thing. There was one church.
Yep.
One church for every community.
And everybody saw it.
And everybody went there,
week.
right?
Yeah.
And the pastor told the good word to everybody in that community. And that's when church was effective. And now it's completely broken down because there's too many people. There's too many communities. There's too many denominations. There's too many different words, too many different messages, too many different things that people are told that's important, right? Because if you have 15 different churches in one small town, everybody's going to church on Sunday and getting 15 different messages, 15 different purposes, 15 different things to work on that week, to focus on that week, to whatever. You're getting too many messages. What's happening? That's just 1 hour at church.
Yeah.
What's happening to you every day on your phone? Too many different purposes, too many different messages, to the point where you don't do anything.
Yeah, you're just like beaten into submission.
You're
basically.
beaten into submission. You go to work, you come home, you have a beer, and that's how most people right now are just in this like we're screwed mentality. So where do you start to fix it? Fix yourself, right? Try to do your best to watch what you eat. Try to do your best to work out. Try to do your best to read the Bible. Try to do your best to be a good husband. Try to do your best to be a good father, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean do it with this. Put that away.
Yeah.
Get a freaking flip phone if you can. I wish I could, right? But put that away. When you're home, that doesn't exist, right? That's the thing that parents have to remember. Well, they're like, well, man, what if somebody texts me or calls me or thinks I'm ignoring them? Fuck them. Right? Like, remember back in the day before cell phones?
Yeah.
If dad was home from work, it better be a fucking emergency if that phone rang for dad to go get it. Yeah. You don't call and talk to mom and dad at night unless your mom, their mom or dad.
Remember
right?
the days
or
if you had to
sister.
walk to someone's house to knock to see if they could play?
Yeah, right? But now think about how much we allow people to invade our privacy now, or to invade our family time, because we feel we owe everyone a response because we know they have their phone on too. Put this phone down. When you get home, you're home.
Yeah.
Be there. Nowhere else. Nowhere fucking else. Be a husband and a father. Nothing fucking else. That phone should not you shouldn't touch it. Right? You don't need to be scrolling on Instagram. There's no reason to be doing anything with that phone. If more dads could start to set that precedent for their house, this world would be a much better place. Because guess what? You're going to get that quality time with your children to be a dad. You're going to get that quality time to fix your fucked up marriage. Because I guarantee you most of us have issues, right? Well, it's probably because we're spending more time on that than we are with each other. You're going to get that time to go outside, to play games, to work out. Do an activity. Go on a walk with your family. Go outside. Go to the park. Do something in the sun.
Yeah.
Right? Do those things. Start to be a normal human being. You don't have to let technology control you. Right? So that's a good start. You know what? You might actually start to learn who your kids are. Right? Instead of who they are behind a phone. They might start to learn who they are, who they should be, because now you're spending the right time with them. Right? Put the phones down. Right? After that, again, I'm going to harp on it. Church, we got to change. We got to do something to change things. We have to start a movement. It's not going to start with the pastors and the people that are getting the paycheck from it.
Yeah.
The movement and change and the mission of the churches is going to start with the people that go there.
Yeah. I'll just give an example there, and this is a totally personal example, but it's been working really well for me, is I've connected with a couple other guys, and I'm speaking purely from the masculine perspective here, but I would imagine this would work with women too. Couple local guys who are very, very on fire for God. They know a lot more about the Bible, man. And we go and get coffee together, and we do like what we're doing right now. And I'm just soaking it all in, man. And I'm like learning and growing. And I'm like, I leave those meetings we get together just like absolutely fired up to be like, whoa, you know what? I just like unlocked some new secrets, and, I have a personal vision to kind of grow that to get more men involved, to make it a little bit bigger, but not like a church thing necessarily, but like we're in the Word, we're supporting each other, we're calling each other throughout the week about problems and struggles, and it comes back to that brotherhood thing we talk a lot about here. I mean, I argue we're kind of doing church when we do that. I mean, shoot, one of the guys is a missionary.
You are.
Well, but the other one of them is literally he funds himself to go on mission trips around the world.
I love that.
And
it's great.
So when he speaks about the Word, I mean, I'm listening. Anyway. So I went on a tangent there. But that is a personal example you can start to foster. It starts by making some friends. It starts by building a brotherhood. If your faith is important to you, you can include that in your brotherhood.
The co-op, just like you said, your community, wherever 3 or more are gathered, so am I. Right? Is your community can be the co-op.
Yeah.
You can get with like-minded parents and get with people that do that.
It's like we don't feel like we have the authority to do these things. Like we've been conditioned to think you need someone else to do it for you. It's like, no, guys, you can choose.
Yeah.
You can create the buy-in. Like,
there you go.
Hey, Matt, every Saturday, let's get our families together and let's spend an hour talking about the Word, give a little Bible lesson, and then let's just cook lunch together or whatever. Boom.
Hang out.
There you go.
There you go. It's that easy. Well, I mean, let's be honest, right? All of the things that give people authority, so to speak, for priesthood or all of that in the Bible, let's be honest, the Catholic Church just made a lot of this shit up. If you go back, I mean, I'm not trying to insult anybody or make fun of what people believe. I'm just trying to say the truth. The truth is the Catholic Church made almost all this shit up. And that's why you had the Protestant Reformation, right? And then you had the multiple denominations that come out of this. We have a lot of people going out there and making shit up or giving themselves authority through the Word of God, right? So is any of that stuff that gives these people authority in the Bible?
Nothing really that comes to mind.
Right.
Because the word that's
I
used
can't
is
think of anything.
teacher, right?
Yeah.
Elders.
Elders, which generally just means an average guy who's studied a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, elders, and then in the in the Bible when it talks about elders, it's more referring to like the old Jewish tradition, right? Then in the Jewish synagogues, not necessarily the Jesus's church,
I'd
right?
love for you to weigh in. Because we're getting you split up over here.
I mean,
for me personally, like
I got to interject real quick.
I gotta hear it.
When I'm having like a crisis of faith or in my marriage or whatever, Brandon right here is the guy I call first because he is not just wicked smart at it. He lives it. Like he is literally the shining example of like, if you want to know what a good marriage looks like, look at him and his wife. I promise that is like, that's what I aim for,
Yeah.
So I whatever he's about to say, I just want to put that out front. Like this is the guy I call first to help me all the time.
So I think that regardless of what church or place that you're at, God will still use it for good. So there can be bad people in that church. There can be bad people everywhere in the world, and he's still going to use them for good if it's within his will. And so for me personally, when I go to church, like Wednesday nights, my children get to learn in they have what they call a glow, which is like these people pour into these kids about Jesus. They pour into them about our faith and what it requires and what the moralities and the foundations that we need to teach them before the world tries to teach them other things, right? And so while they're doing that, we're learning in like discipleship groups. So like it's a small group of 6 men, and we get together and we talk about the verses that we're supposed to study for the week, but we also talk about our real life stuff. Like, hey, this week I struggled with this. I need you to pray for me, or hey, what do you think about this situation? How would you handle it? So again, the iron sharpens iron thing, like most men are just not even in a church. They're not in any kind of moral
we
setting.
Said it before, I think it's 70% of men claim they don't have a single close friend.
I would rather them be at a church than not at a church and alone and isolated and not taking in any word or any moral direction. Like they're just lost. And that's what our job is, to go out there and to make them not lost and call them to that higher place. And so for me, that's why I love my church, is because they genuinely, like we've been through quite a few churches, but like they genuinely call people up to what they're supposed to be. And then they help spread out, like you said, the widows and the orphans. They go out there, we feed people, we give food drives and can drives, and we do international mission funding, and we do all these things, not just in our community, but externally as well. So I think there's a lot of good, but yes, I think there can be some reformation. Like there can be some things that we focus more on, and we need to, like you said, because we're just all so in screens, and it's so easy to isolate ourselves within a phone, and instead we should be focusing on our connections with other people. And I think that's also how we find a lot of the bad too.
We'll look at most people in America have had interactions with the church, and they've chosen to leave it because of what the church has become. You know, and this is really where I'm, really just dying on this hill is there needs to be massive reformation in the church, because it is better to walk 1,000 miles than to read 1,000 books, so to speak, right? Is praying and walking with the Lord, doing the Lord's work, right? Is to me way more important than my children sitting there and getting the word poured into them. Taking them somewhere and having them pour good into others is really, to me, what church is about, right? And so taking my daughters and putting them in situations where they can see real life, they can see hurt, they can see sorrow, and they can be good, and they can do good for others. To me, that's church. Yeah. Right? That is them giving back and learning through their works, right? Instead of being in a suburb in a nice building, air conditioning, and protected and sheltered, and hearing the good word but not doing the good work. Yeah. Right? And that is really, there's got to be a lot of change, because in a lot of those places it's judgy. It's a very judgmental place to be. Yeah.
It should be.
A lot of people would say, how is Matt Murphy a Christian? Because he has killed people, he cusses, he drinks, he's cheated on past wives, he's done all these things. He's been a horrible person. He's been a product of war, right? How could Matt Murphy be sitting here now trying to do good, right? Well, all those things that I was and became, the good and the bad, has put me in a position to where I can do a lot of good for others and have been able to affect and change thousands of lives. I'm not trying to say this in a bragging way, but how many people at church that would judge me for saying, fuck, how many lives have they changed? Right. What difference have they made in this fucking world? And that's my biggest problem with church. Most people at church would say, Matt, because you're a pastor, or Matt, because of this, or Matt, because of that, or Matt, because of that, you're not living right, and God, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what have you fucking done for anybody?
And that's it right there. And that's where I put the onus back on men. And so maybe you're listening to this, you're not religious. Yeah. It's still on you, right? Like, we are the standard bearers. We set the tone. We lead by example. And so, this attitude of, oh, well, that person doesn't have this title, or they've made these mistakes. They can't. Man, I've learned from people that, they have no official title to be the right guy to teach me the thing. But the lesson they taught me was like, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, I know every man deserves.
It requires some humility, right? Yeah. And for the Christians listening, Saul was literally murdering God's people, the early Christians, like hunting them down and murdering them. Yeah. And then he became the most prominent apostle. Yeah. God transformed him on the road to Tarsus. Yeah. So there's a balance. I think we've certainly ruffled some feathers with this conversation. But at the end of the day, it's like, what is your heart? And this is what Brandon is so good about, like, challenging me on this, right? Because we get stuck in our lenses, right? We put on our filters and our angers and our fears and all that kind of stuff. And he'll ask me these kind of questions, like, well, what's really in your heart about that, though?
What's the
like
intent?
Challenging my intent.
Yeah, what's your intent?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? If I really think about it, I was just being a jerk. I was just being a terrible husband. You're right. Yeah, I was being selfish. Yeah. So, but that's what I'm saying. So, like, check yourself, involve those around you who are going to do that. And
the last thing I'll say about it is, a true follower of Christ and not a religious person, there's two polarizing different, right?
100%.
And so a person that truly follows Christ understands that every single person deserves a measure of grace on a daily basis. Amen. So that's number one.
We all deserve eternal damnation and judgment without Christ.
Right.
For all have sinned.
He offers forgiveness.
And fall short of the glory of God. Yes.
And the second thing is, and this is where we align, is that every man should be doing this outside of the 1 hour at church. Like, you should be following Christ. You should be loving others. You should be doing all the things that God has called us to do. He said to love others as you love yourself. And so you have to love yourself and you have to love others, but you have to love them in the way that God loves us, right? And so we have to do that more than just on Wednesdays and Sundays. We have to do it every single day. And there's a lot of people that just go to church to look good socially, and then
I check my box,
fill the cup up,
I
and
check
then
my
leave.
box. I'm good to go now.
And I get what you're saying.
The church is to fill
Well,
other
and I
people's
would
cups
look.
up, not
I
your
was
own.
that guy. I grew up in it. I was
Yeah.
that guy until I don't know, Brandon. What was it? 3 years ago, I started really getting serious about things, and you started really challenging me. I think, yeah. So for 32 years on this earth,
Yeah.
I was the guy that we're harping on, you know.
Yeah.
And it took some hard conversations from men I respect to call me out and call me up, and so here we are. But back to the point, community.
Amen. Creating community.
So men need to go hunt that out. You have to foster it for your families. It's on you. It's your responsibility. Don't look to your wife. Well, my wife doesn't want to go. Okay, then take your kids and go make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Your wife will follow. Women will follow when they see men living the right way, in the right example. That has been one of the biggest things that I have noticed in my journey, especially dealing with other guys that do what I do or similar things, is if you're living in a good way, right? If you're treating your wife well and doing good things, your wife's going to be there for you all day.
Oh, yeah.
Your wife doesn't have your back when you're not treating her right.
You're not
Or
leading.
you're not doing good things.
You're not leading.
Right? You're not leading,
Yeah.
right? You're not deserving her following you, right?
That's
It's just, and I think, I know it's just, men and women are different. Biologically, we're different, right? And if you're living up to who you are biologically, and then what God called us to be, it's a big thing. Like, do I say fuck all the time? Yeah. Am I working on it? Not really. But, and are there other things that
We'll change you one day.
Yeah. Well, God doesn't say don't say fuck. He says, he says other
I'm
things.
messing
I
with you.
know. But my point is, man, when you really get into the Bible and you look at this, well, in the Old Testament, guys had concubines for days, right? Guys had multiple wives. Some of the most revered men in the Old Testament were sex addicts that had thousands of whores, right? Let's be honest,
Solomon.
right? So when you look at this, you're like, okay, but they were holy men, right? Revered, loved by God, chosen to do a good thing, right? And a lot of people are like, wait a second, Matt, you just said fuck. Or Matt, you did this in the past. Matt, so no, dude, to me, being a good Christian is about your works, right?
Yeah.
What you do for others. Where's your heart? Do you have a good heart or a bad heart? Do you have a malicious intent? Or do you have some type of righteous intent for others, right?
Yeah.
Is how do you treat other people? Are you taking advantage and hurting others, right? And when you really get into the Bible of who God chose and who God started to transform or chose to do his works, what he wanted his people to do, he didn't want his people sitting around judging each other, trying to be better than each other.
No.
Right? He just wanted his people out there doing good things.
Right.
And, a lot of people need to wake up to this. When God comes back, his robe's covered in blood.
Yeah.
Not covered. It's got something on it. Because he's coming back with a sword.
Yeah.
And, he's coming back to go to war. It's time to defeat the devil and his minions here on earth and the demons, right?
Yeah.
When God comes back, when he returns, and a lot of people are getting ready for God to return by being a bunch of pansies.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and we're not taking. So, I think it was Jim Caviezel said that. I forget where I heard it, but this example really stuck with me. And not to get into theology of like which sin is worse, but when you think, throughout the Bible, we're called to have like childlike faith, and there's the love of children, right? The protection of children is just this theme that's just poured throughout so much of it, right? Where God loves the children, right? And then you think of the crime of child trafficking and extortion. What could possibly be more antithetical to what God designed than committing that type of evil, right? And what are we doing about it?
Well, why is the church allowing it to happen in its own community?
So
right?
we've been at this a little bit. I want to go through like real quick rapid fire. We covered some high level things like, be a better husband, be a better man, build community. But like realistically then outside of those things, is it things just people need to pay attention to and call up? Like what does the average person listening actually do to start affecting this fight beyond just like building your better little bubble.
So the biggest things you can do, support organizations that are actually legitimately doing something about it, right? Everything costs money these days,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing I fight against so much right now is you have a lot of people that want to give to charity, tithe, but then they don't know how to trust it. Or, well, I already give to my church, or I already give to this, or I already give to that. And it's prioritizing, what you do with your money, right? Like, if my foundation and a lot of other foundations that do similar stuff, your donations don't go into my pocket.
Yeah.
Your donations go to the mission,
Right.
And finding a good foundation that puts 100% of proceeds into the mission, that's doing the work, is really a good way to support it, because not everybody can fight this fight.
Yeah,
at the level, right?
So to that point too, I want to make this clear, because when I first heard about these things too, I want to be the guy going and kicking in doors and rescuing kids. In reality, you've got that covered, right? Like you know enough dudes who are way tougher than me, who have a lot more training than me, that are already got that covered, right?
Well,
so what most of us are not that guy, and that's fine. There's other ways money. What else? can we do?
Money, support, really the prevention, education, and awareness, man.
Yeah.
Is just in your own communities, and this is why if everyone started getting their family right and their community right, this would be a better place. And that's why I beat up on the church so much, because I'm serious. If the church just took care of its community and took care of kids, I wouldn't have to rescue so many. Right? That's just the truth. There are billions of dollars given to churches here in this community. All of the good people, the good Christians, the people who could affect and save these children. These are God's children. The very institution that can change this doesn't, isn't. Right? So people need to create their communities, and they need to get on their church and start talking to their pastor about what their church is doing. Right? I mean, if you can't protect your own, you can't protect your own little neighborhood, or your own little city, your own little municipality, or your own state, or your own country, why are you spending all this money everywhere else? Right? Human trafficking and child exploitation are out of control here. There are more than enough kids without a roof over their head, or without protection, or without safety here. There are more than enough women that are being treated unfairly, or being trafficked, or being taken advantage of, or being abused, or addicted to drugs and beaten here. Why aren't we doing it here? Why are all the churches giving all of their money to programs all over the world? Why are we not taking care of our own people here? That's a question to ask. Because the money I'm fighting for to get to the charity, to go save kids with, is the money that's being donated and given in tithe to the churches, these big, beautiful, badass buildings all over the state of Tennessee. And I don't see anything happening in our communities to make the community better.
Yeah.
And especially at scale. I don't see anything happening. I don't see the churches coming together. That's why I'm going to keep harping on it, because, man, until there is a drastic change in the way this is done, nothing is going to happen. You could give me $5 or $1 million, but all we're doing is playing whack-a-mole, because there's so many kids that are being trafficked or exploited, and we need it, and those kids deserve to be rescued. And we're going to get to as many as we can, but until the institutions and the people start doing what's necessary to get our communities back in line, back in order, back to safe, then we've got bigger problems.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just a reality check. And people need to start looking at it that way, right?
Yeah.
It's not up to Sentinel Foundation to rescue all these kids.
Right.
It's not up to the churches alone to rescue all these kids. It's up to us.
Yeah.
It's up to us as men and as leaders to do our part, right? And collectively come together and say enough is enough. And where do we start?
Internally,
Yeah.
like you said. Okay.
Yeah, we don't start in Africa. We don't start in Russia.
Yeah.
We don't start sending our children on missions somewhere else when our kids could be taking themselves downtown to a homeless shelter or an orphanage, playing with those kids, feeding those kids, giving those kids some love, giving them some attention, giving them some hugs. That's where we went wrong as a society, is we have not invested in our own communities and taking care of our own children and our own people. And we've cared so much about everything else around us and everything that doesn't really matter, that our children and our widows have suffered.
And what's sad to me is it almost seems like it's easier for kids to be exploited than it is to be adopted these days.
100%. And 100%, because...
Or aborted, for that matter.
Brother, between abortion, the foster care system, child protection services, between like I said, we've already beat it to death. I just want the church to wake up, the failures of the church to do what it's called to do, and everything else. We are living in a perfect storm right now where our children, our people, our daughters, our sons are being preyed upon. Yeah. And so many people just feel hopeless. And I don't want people to be hopeless. There is hope. That's the whole message of this. The money is there. The institutions are there. The good people are there. They just need to be repurposed on what good is.
Yeah.
Good is not making sure Matt doesn't say fuck, right? Good is not making sure Matt doesn't have 3 beers instead of 6 beers. Good is making sure you do good for others. Do good for others. Take care of others. Yes, take care of yourself. Don't let yourself get out of control, but help people. Help people. That's all it is. And if we just started doing that, I guarantee this world would be a better place. And we would have to rescue a lot less kids because we can't even... Man, if you took every law enforcement officer in the United States of America, everyone, federal, state, local law enforcement officer, and you put them against child exploitation alone, they would not be able to handle the caseload.
Wow.
That's how out of control it is. Less than 1% of cases get adequately investigated. Less than 1%.
Wow.
We have no idea how many children are being human trafficked. Millions.
We're just guessing.
Millions. Yeah. We know it's millions because millions have come into our country, and God knows where the hell they went or what happened to them.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't keep you up at night, that there's little children that have been moved all over this country with no dad to look out for them, no mom to take care of them or give them a hug, and they just get thrown somewhere. It literally makes me want to fucking cry, man. Our government's doing it, and we're not doing a fucking thing about it. And where are the men at?
Yeah.
All these issues, all these problems. And half of us aren't even doing a damn good job of taking care of our own kids.
Right.
Much less other people's kids.
Well, and so that's what I want to speak to that point right there, right? Because maybe you're listening to this like, well, I'm just a guy, or I'm not very good myself, or whatever. Okay, so just be a little bit better today. Yeah. And listen to what Matt's saying and just start stepping up as much as you can wherever you are, whatever your situation, whatever your flaws, and just start chasing those slight margins of improvement. And, we talk about that in every context on this podcast, is just whatever your thing is, just get that much better at it. And it's not, it's going to take a lot of work. You're not going to be perfect. I want to close with just a few very practical things. We talked about building community, a lot of other, limit the phones, all that kind of stuff. So what are some warning signs that parents can be aware of wherever they go of, something's fishy or something's off?
Yeah. And that's a very difficult one because the exception, not the norm, is the human trafficking, like the white van scenario.
Yeah.
I think really the biggest thing parents can do is keep their kids close, when they're out about in public. Don't helicopter parent, right? But based on their age and, their maturity level and physical capability and all that, when they can... they need to stay right next to you holding your hand, or they can walk off on their own with their friends and whatever. We should know that level. But they have to be trained and educated on I don't think stranger danger is the proper word, because there's not all strangers are bad, right? There are good strangers. Strange behavior, right, is probably a better way to talk to your children about people. There's certain things people shouldn't say to you. There's certain things people shouldn't ask you. Yeah. Right? There's certain ways that people should approach you.
So can you walk through what's, my wife and I have done that, right? And I think to mainly her credit, she's been very, very good about telling our daughter, hey, if someone asks you these types of things, it's not okay, and
Yeah.
you need to tell someone immediately, and you can always tell us. And so, like, what are some of those things, Matt, that,
Yeah.
based off your experience and seeing all this kind of stuff, parents should have? They're kind of scary, hard conversations, but you got to condition against it, right?
So I will start with this: a safe word.
Okay.
Every family needs a safe word. Okay, every family needs that, and they not just because of strangers, but because of artificial intelligence and manipulation and all the things that are out there now. And if you make this safe word, you make it nowhere near your cell phones. Like, go as far away from your phones in your house as you can, out in the fucking woods, out in the middle of the park. No one's got a phone or an iWatch or anything that can listen or any technology near them. And then you as a family agree to that safe word, and you never speak that word again unless it's needed to be used, right? And children need to understand the severity of that. Because if you text it, if you say it around your phone, then it's going to be recorded by applications and AI, okay? And then it can still be used to manipulate. Everything you do anywhere near your phone is recorded. Every single thing, voice, actions, movement, place, it's all recorded. Every keystroke, nothing's sacred anymore. You have no privacy, there's no such thing as it. So just remember that. There's no such thing as privacy. And if you have a smartphone, your entire life, everything there is to know about you, every little secret, it's on there and it's up there and it's in the cloud and it's in a box with your name on it, every place it could be. Anyways, going on. That safe word should only be used then. So with strangers, no stranger, and these ones are, pretty obvious. Teach your kids that no stranger should ever ask them to go anywhere with them alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You should never be alone with a stranger, right? That's strange behavior. No strangers be like, hey, come with me, or hey, get in my car, or hey, go to this place. No stranger should ever ask them to go anywhere than where they're at, right? No stranger should try to touch them, right? There's no reason a stranger should put their hands on your child, right? So if any stranger's trying to touch them, they need to, react accordingly, whatever that is. Run away, go tell somebody, grab somebody, whatever. The other thing, and this is, a big one, no stranger should ever ask them for their personal information. No stranger should ask them for their cell phone number, or their street address, or what their parents' names are, or anything. No stranger should ever ask them for any of their personal information, right? Especially an adult, right? Kids is a little different. Kids can have different conversations.
Yeah.
But adults especially should never be asking kids anything personal, right? And kids need to understand what is personal.
Yeah.
Right? They need to understand that their phone number, their address, their email, their screen name, whatever it is, that's their personal information that they don't give out to the public or people that they don't know.
Yeah.
They need to be taught, what's a personal boundary, because there's so few personal boundaries anymore because of what we share online. Kids share everything, right? So kids need to be taught, that boundary and what's safe and what's not. The other big one is you don't know who people are online, and kids really need to be taught this, right?
Yeah.
Just because somebody has a name or a profile picture or whatever, or behaves a certain way, that doesn't mean they are who they really are.
Yep.
So I would tell most parents, do not let your children have friends that you don't know.
Okay.
All right, online, right? This is a big one.
Yeah.
Especially in younger ages. Do not let your children have friends on games or whatever they do online. If you let them on those things, I would just not let them on them in the first place. But if you do not let them have friends or interact or talk with people that you don't know.
Right.
Because those games are full of predators. Where the kids are or where the predators will be.
Can you list some of those? I know there's some big offenders of those.
Roblox is one of the biggest ones right now that we've been working with. But
It's
any
Minecraft
game, all of them, any game that where you can chat and kids are at, they will be there. Predators will be there. Because what a lot of parents don't understand is, and this goes back to your point earlier, I meant to address it, but I was on the church rant. The games, social media, all these places, if a child can be there, a predator will be there. Like, well, but then my child knows better than that. No, they don't. There's a manual that's shared millions of times a year on torrent sites. Everybody remembers torrent sites, right? Where you can download your music illegally back in the day.
Yep.
Well, predators and all kinds of people still use them to trade and download files. There is a manual shared millions of times a year here in the U.S. It is a grooming manual for predators. It teaches them where the kids are.
How to gain their trust.
Well, the whole thing. It tells them how to start the conversation, what vulnerabilities to look for in the conversation, things to ask a kid to identify their vulnerabilities. Angry at their parents, dad not home, only mom, all kinds of different, there's all kinds of things. Walks them through to identify a child who would be vulnerable or open to being groomed and exploited. Then it walks them through how to manipulate the conversation to get them to the point to where you have the ability to create some type of level of love interest. You can pretend to be a child, you can pretend to be an adult, depending on what the child needs based on the earlier conversation, right? And then you make the child develop a strong relationship, and then you turn the relationship sexual. It teaches them how to turn the relationship sexual. This is basically textbook grooming, manipulation, stuff. Then once the relationship sexual, it teaches them the tradecraft, right, behind having a sexual relationship online with a child, how to delete things, how to use other applications, more encrypted applications, how to hide applications on the phone. Teaches them all this shit.
Jeez.
Then it teaches them, after it teaches them the sexual part, it teaches them how to get the kid to run away. Because if the child runs away, the cops aren't looking for them if they can't prove anything malicious. So once the child runs away, then the predator has free reign on them. Then the manual teaches them how to sexually touch the child based on the child's age, appropriate sexual contact and play, and then how early, how you can tell when they're okay, to where putting your penis inside them won't hurt them, right, depending on where you put it. And it does this for kids of all ages.
Jeez, man.
People need to understand that the most popular category for child sexual abuse material online is toddlers. Toddlers. That's the most, it's not 15-year-olds, it's not 13-year-olds, it's not 12-year-olds, it's toddlers. Fucking toddlers. That is the most popular category. The majority of child sexual abuse material online is toddlers.
God help this world.
Man.
Yeah. Fucking demons.
I'm just kind of processing through that right now.
Yeah. So
That's
people
ridiculous.
need to understand that these creeps, these evil people, there is nothing, knows no bounds, right?
Yeah, there's no limit to where it will go.
Yeah. And people think, oh, well, I'm safe. That can't happen here, blah, 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 blah. The second you give your child a phone, anything can happen here because it's no longer in their neighborhood. The most powerful and largest dark web sexual board with millions of users that had to produce child sexual abuse material to become a member was ran by a guy who lived in Franklin, Tennessee.
Wow. So it really is everywhere.
It is everywhere. Yeah. It's in every neighborhood.
All right, Matt. We've been going at this quite a lot. Lots to chew on here for everyone.
I can go on for days. Man.
Yeah, I mean, I could too. I want parents to listen to this and just identify your weaknesses if you have any vulnerabilities. Take Matt's advice. You can disagree with him on a lot of stuff. That's fine. But let's all agree on protecting our kids and doing the practical things we can do to defend them. And then look around in your communities to see where you can support. So where can people find you? Is it sentinelfoundation.com?
Sentinel Foundation.
.org?
FoundationSentinel.org.
FoundationSentinel.org.
Sentinel Foundation on Instagram or Facebook. We got to have them. We do some content.
Yep.
Then there's links to donate and support on the site. We keep a lot of things hush-hush, right? The Sentinel Foundation's mission is to give a special operations approach, a strategic intelligence approach to this problem, start to help utilize the things that trillions of dollars were spent on a global war on terror to fight this, start to utilize those same methodologies, that same training, and that same intel and tech to save our kids, here internationally and domestically, right? So we have some people that donate to support the international mission. We have guys that go and do that from, Thailand to Colombia to Uganda, you name it. We do a lot of good things. Right. The team just rescued 59 disabled children out of Haiti, as it's fallen into just complete gang control. And we got those kids were moved safely to Jamaica and to doctors and caretakers over there, which was amazing. We basically do anything internationally that requires a special operations approach. We have some amazing people on the team from Delta Force and the unit and special forces. And then this build out of what we're trying to do with the task forces and technology here in the States.
A lot more to follow. Got to keep it hush for now, right?
Yeah, you know, we've it's about the deed, not the glory.
Right.
And that's the next thing about Sentinel. It's not about me, right?
Yeah.
It's not about Glenn Devitt, who founded it, or Jameson Cavani, I can't say his name right to save my life, or any of the operators who you'll never see, right? Unfortunately, because of, you know, what I did with starting Lightshine and the TV and the interviews and the podcasts and stuff, you know, there's very few undercover operations that I can go on anymore, right? So I'm just a talking head for it. You know, Ryan Montgomery obviously is always behind the computer. He can be dangerous from wherever.
Right.
He's a face and a voice for it. Glenn Devitt obviously is in that same position as I am. Just too many different things. So the real heroes, the true guys that are out there, you know, have chosen to live a life of silence and secrecy to continue to do this. And every day in, day out, they go on these operations and missions to support law enforcement internationally, or even do some things here stateside to get children rescued.
Yeah.
And that's who the real heroes are. You know? I'm just a talking head and have to, you know, build the machine.
Right. Well,
You know,
and we'd like to express our gratitude for those brave men who are doing the real work.
They're amazing human beings.
Yeah, and I'd like to just close then with one more final call to action. Like, we can't go be those guys in the dark, right?
Yeah.
But you can start being better today. You can take an active role in this. Again, it's not about whether you believe with Matt on everything or agree with Matt's beliefs on every single thing, but hopefully this has opened your eyes to this great evil that is pervasive, and it's going to take all of us to start stepping up, being bold, being better, raising our families well, and then, to your point, banding together, using our resources more effectively to actually make a difference, because if you guys caught everyone, it's still not enough.
Yeah, it's prevention, education, awareness. It starts with parents, and then parents helping out the kids that don't have parents.
Yeah.
You know, and just getting out in our community, you know, and stopping our own children that are here, you know, from being taken advantage of.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for shedding a lot of light on a very difficult subject, and I appreciate you coming here and just shooting it straight, right? Because this isn't something we can tap dance around anymore. Nope. It's a hard conversation. We need to take some action and be honest with ourselves about the problem we're facing. So thank you for your words and your candor.
I'm going to tell the truth as I see it, man.
That's right, man.
And I've been wrong before. You know?
We're all just learning and growing every day. So, all right, dads, parents, everyone out there, please, please, please take these words, put them into action. And with that, we'll get climbing up that mountain of fatherhood. We will see you in the next episode.